Shania Twain, we got something. It is 8:33. We got something going here on Wednesdays. Scott Campsall joins me now from Okami Kai.
Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. And you'll be a regular here on Wednesdays with us.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I write it down on the, it's Wednesday. Scott's coming in. Yeah, and nice and early, too, as well. And the idea... We kind of kicked this idea around for a while here at the radio station, and it really didn't get the full traction we were hoping for. And then you came back and mentioned something like a Wellness Wednesday, and I went, well, as a matter of fact, we talked about this. And you said, well, I've got a group of people who think it'd be great if we could slot them in and talk about not just the physical well-being, but emotional, spiritual well-being as well. And one of those people joins us this morning, Andrew Allison from the Leesdale Presbyterian Church. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. Actually, I sort of feel like I'm at the cool kids table in the cafeteria now because I'm in the room with you guys, and I'm a pretty big fan of both of you.
Hope that works out for you.
Yeah, well, thank you. You can, you can buy us a coffee if you want. We're good with that, too. We're going to talk about the emotional, spiritual side of it today. Andrew, you find being a minister sometimes that people... they're not standoffish necessarily, but maybe a bit intimidated. You were joking, Scott, saying about being at the big people's table, but I think some people are intimidated by a minister at times. Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the worst on a golf course, and you exchange what you're doing, and as soon as I admit, I'm a minister in a church, that kind of shuts things down. So for sure, it can be a conversation stopper instead of a starter.
Yeah, and now is that a difficulty in that, people who need somebody to talk to, and you have training in this, that it's sometimes tough getting them through the door?
Yeah, I think fair enough. I think that there's an assumption that maybe this comes with a lot of God baggage that is they're going to have to subscribe to everything that I believe. But I think every human being is precious, and I think that I do believe that God's made everyone, and that each person's got a story. So yeah, when they come in the door from whatever place they're coming from, it's a neat opportunity for me to listen. And not just teach, but just to listen and value each life.
Is it me, or is there a lot of anger out there these days?
Yeah, it does seem. I think about my own anger, and I think about the times when I'm angry is when I'm out of control. And when we look at what's going on in the news, either nationally or globally, and you can see where people would feel out of control at a disease level, at a political level. It is a difficult time to live, for sure.
What do you offer up when somebody comes in and they say, I just can't handle it. I'm angry all the time. Where do you start?
Yeah, I guess my temptation would be start with there being a God and there being someone out there who loves you. But maybe folks aren't able to swallow that right away. And so I do try to listen. I think what's really important in the midst of anger or in the midst of a conflict is the ability to own your own feelings, where you're coming from, what's going on. Before I get my finger out and start pointing and doing the blame game, I need to actually figure out where I'm coming from and what it is that actually has me dialed up. And so there's some good questions to ask around, what are you feeling and why might you be feeling those things?
Well, and I think it's so important, too, that you take a pause, take a moment, because it's a lot like going down a hill if you're running. And when you get that moment where you feel like, I'm not keeping up with my feet, you can end up on your face pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. You guys know what it is to work with students and to coach. And, you just can't cookie cutter, right? Just not everybody's going to fall into the same groove. And so you probably do some of your best work as a coach by studying the student and watching and listening. And I think that does a few things. But one of the things it profoundly does, I think, is that it communicates respect. As opposed to, I'm going to use this opportunity to flaunt my wisdom or to cram a student into a success routine that I think is going to work. I think there's fundamental to human beings is the desire and the longing to be respected, and that happens when we listen to each other.
Well, maybe that's what the part of the problem is out there, is we feel, people aren't listening necessarily to what is happening. And looking for that one person who will indeed listen to you.
Yeah. And I think, too, not that solutions aren't important. They are. It's important to get to a spot. But sometimes we're so quick to solve things. I think us men maybe could take a little lesson from women. My experience with watching women deal with their problems is that they listen to each other. When we go to each other, typically men, we figure that we're being approached by another guy because he's got a problem that I need to solve, and so we go to resolution. We go to quick answers. But I watch my wife, and she's just like, they talk and she talks, and they pass some chocolate around, and then they walk away an hour and a half later, and there's something that has happened fundamentally. I think it has to do with, hey, I got listened to. I didn't actually need all the answers. I can get there myself, but I need someone who's making eyeball contact with me and affirming my human worth.
You find women network better too than guys? Like guys sort of go alone, go solo?
Yeah, I hate to do gender generalizations, but I do think that we're prone to being lone wolves, and we're prone to wanting to impress each other, and we may have a tendency towards not being real comfortable to expose our weakness or to be vulnerable. And again, I don't know that that's necessarily every man, and I don't know that's necessarily every woman that comes open and vulnerable. But there does, as I watch my wife in particular, I watch the women that I work with, or I do work with the fire department, which is predominantly male. There are some tendencies that we've got, and there's strengths, right? There's strengths for men and for women, and there's weaknesses.
Well, and trying to find that line too between strength and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, but not falling into a pit. That can be very difficult.
Yeah. No, for sure. I guess that's the great fear. If we ever expose weakness, I've fallen and I'll never get up. I don't think so. I think that there is, I was in a discussion recently, we were talking about weakness, and you hear this comment around teams, right? The team is only as strong as the weakest link. Well, that kind of thinking doesn't sponsor honesty, because I don't want to be the weak link. So I'm going to keep my chest puffed out. I'm going to keep my talk strong. But I think actually the strength of a team is determined by how they treat people when they're at their weakest. And if we can get our heads wrapped around that, and if we, whoever we are, find ourselves actually cared for, listened to when we're in a low spot, down spot, and pick your experience there, then ultimately you're on the hook to advocate for yourself and find solutions and gather people around you, or you can whine and flop and make a mess of things.
Well, I think that's something you deal with, Scott, with the community. Now, it can be a community of Uxbridge, it could be whatever, or the community within your own gym. And there's kind of a support group, even though sometimes it's not overt, it's there. And if you can get the feeling that there are others there with you, it's a lot easier doing the daily tasks, especially if you're struggling.
Yeah, we don't push we don't push the community on a new student. So if somebody comes in, chances are they're not necessarily trying to get involved in martial arts or something because they want to be involved in the community. Every once in a while, you do get somebody that just, I want to go out, I want to meet people, I just moved into town, et cetera. But most of the time it's, I want to get in shape, I want a different activity, or I did martial arts when I was a kid, I want to redo it. And then I've just found that our now success in the last few years especially has just been involved from having great people around us.
Right.
And we've all got a common interest.
So it evolves into a community.
Yeah, for sure. But you can get that in anything. Like you can go to the Legion and there's a bunch of people that all maybe play euchre or bingo or darts or so with us it just over time it evolves. And I usually notice the beginner students, they're really shy at first to try to get involved, and it's part of it. It's a different culture and it's a different idea. There's a lot of etiquette and stuff that comes with martial arts, and so once they learn that, they start getting comfortable. They meet people, and then it sort of evolves from there. But when we're talking earlier about stuff you got going on at the church with grief share, divorce care, and all that stuff. What kind of person all of a sudden says, you know what, I need that? Is it a desperate person, or is it a person that they more do it to enrich themselves, or
check in on maintenance?
Yeah, is it that because with us, like I said, I don't know if necessarily somebody comes to us necessarily and says, "Oh, I'm desperate, I got to get in shape," or everyone. Again, every once in a while, there's always that person against the norm, but most of the people, it's just they're actually in a good place, or they think they are, and they come in, and then that's when things start to unfold. And I've had moms that'll tell me over and over again, "Oh, you tell my kid to clean his room, and all of a sudden he's cleaning his room. I tell him, and it doesn't work." And Meanwhile, I'm sitting back going, yeah, I haven't seen my kid's room. Well, and so there's, I get them 2 to 3 hours a week. The parents will get them all, so there's a comfort there that happens. So like I said, I don't think people come to me out of desperation. Like every once in a while you do, but most of the time people are in a good place and it just sort of evolves. I think from like I said, or what I'm asking from the church is like when we're talking about divorce care, like that seems to be something that's not necessarily like I know I've been through it. And, I don't know if I necessarily would have jumped into a divorce care group, because you sort of handle things on your own kind of thing. So what kind of people do you think comes to, is that what you find? Is that it's a desperation, or is it?
Yeah, I think so. In those situations, at least for us, is that people find themselves under a rock, and they're like, I don't know where to go from here. Whether it's the loss of a loved one, and so they come to a grief share program, or whether it's divorce care because the most significant relationship in their life is just sort of disintegrated in between their fingers, or we do there's an addictions gathering on Thursday nights where, folks are at the end of their self-improvement piece. They just can't figure a way out by themselves. And so they're usually, like I ask people, like, scale of 1 to 10, how hard was it to come in here? And they're like 14. So it's a real battle to do that. And it's for numbers of reasons. We hate to look vulnerable and weak, but that's often where these kind of programs, I don't know about Sunday morning if people come in under a rock all the time, but it certainly does happen.
But the important thing here, and it's Andrew Allison, the minister at Leasdale Presbyterian Church, joining us this morning. The important note that we have to make is that door is open.
Yeah, and that's the way it would be at Scott's. Is it a dojo? Yeah. Right, the door is open, and so you come in and grade up or whatever it is with your belt. That's a thing, but then there's also the sense that there's a guy behind the desk, or there's a guy at the front of the classroom who cares about me beyond my skills, and is listening, and I matter. So there is that kind of like community raising kids piece, and you get to play a part like I get to play a part.
Yeah, we use the belt thing as a tool. Like honestly, and with me now, done different martial arts and different styles, eventually it becomes just another piece of paper. Like we've got sort of this phrase, black belt's a white belt who didn't quit. It just you didn't go anywhere, and so eventually you start moving up. And so to us, it's more of a tool than it is anything else.
That's how I ended up in mornings.
Was it? Yeah, you just didn't quit.
Didn't quit. He's still around. Better give him a job. Fine. Either that or give him a broom or something like that. But I do that too. But listen, guys, I love this, and we'll continue to talk. Now, Andrew, if anybody is interested, is there a way they can contact you? Phone the church, leave a message?
Yeah, for sure. The church website's the best way to go about that, completely anonymously, or you can phone the church.
And what is the website?
It's stpauls.ca.
So easy to do and easy to find. And someone's interested in any one of your courses, or and just quickly before we go, Scott, all the different services that you guys do offer, because it is more. I mean, you have spin classes.
Yeah,
you spin classes.
I teach spin. We do. We took over fitness a couple of years ago, so we've got martial arts as far as karate, aikido, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and then there's spin, yoga.
The whole.
If you need a bunch of square footage, we've got it. So,
and how can they get a hold of you?
Website, ours is a little trickier. okamikai.com, okamikai.com. We're on Facebook. You can call the dojo 852-1521.
Guys, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Andrew Allison is minister at Leasdale Presbyterian Church, and Scott Campsall is with Okami Kai.